Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters.
And we're continuing our discussion of the Roundtable, Sanctuary City.
Sanctuary cities,
yes.
Yeah. So we mentioned the fact that
financial impact, maybe.
Yeah, potential financial impact. Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning that, and it was interesting. I mean, I think just to jump to the very end, Councilor Marr actually pointed out after people, mainly the elected officials, sort of took a very very much a kind of the world is ending kind of viewpoint of things, right?
Yeah.
Like worst case scenarios. And David Marr said, well, nothing's actually happened yet. And the sun, what he said that the day after election, the sun came up like any other day.
Yeah, well, maybe for him. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I get what he's saying, but
And he did point out, he says, there are lessons to be learned, and we live in a bubble here. Not everyone thinks the way we do, which was, I thought it was at least worth mentioning that, and urged people to sort of tone down the rhetoric on both sides. He says, it might not be as dire as you may think, and nothing yet has changed. I thought it was interesting because...
a lot of people are saying that.
Actually, the interesting I thought was at this roundtable, in addition to city councilors and several school committee members, some city staff, the head of Human Services Department, head of the Peace Commission, a bunch of other folks were there. But there were also representatives from some of the service agencies that actually deal with immigrants.
Right.
Getting them through, how do you go through the process, whatever. And they were the ones who emphasized more than anyone else. It said that, some of the rhetoric is actually creating fear.
Yes.
And they were a little concerned about that because they wanted people to come in and they wanted people to go through the process. And if they were kind of applying for, to get in the pipeline for immigrant status or whatever, that they wanted people to do. They didn't want to scare people away.
Interesting, yeah.
And actually one other person, actually is the one who gave the link to the place out in California, said that people also need to understand that if all of these predictions of gloom and doom were to take place, it would be a very expensive proposition.
Exactly. I really, she was very encouraging.
Very much.
She said there's so many steps to take, it would be
incredibly expensive to carry out.
Right.
So there are actually some reasons, financial and otherwise, why in fact maybe some of the worst gloom and doom scenarios might not actually materialize. So yeah, I think
it's good to be aware.
The city manager was spot on. He says we're all about planning for contingencies in this city. Right. So that's what we're doing. Even if nothing nothing changes, we want to be ready.
Surprised.
So that we have funding sources in place to cover any kind of funding that might be lost, and we want to plan for it. We don't want to get caught by surprise.
He's the right man to know about the funding.
He's the right man to talk about budget planning too.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's good. That's reassuring.
Yeah, I thought it was very reassuring.
Good.
Absolutely. I think actually Louis DiPasquale, the city manager, also just happened to mention, just parenthetically, that he had. I think it was part of the process when he was becoming city manager, mentioned the possibility of having a citizens advisory committee, sort of advising the manager directly.
Oh, that would be a new thing, right?
Something another candidate, Jay Ash, had said he did in Chelsea.
Oh. Right, yeah.
So if I understand this correctly, but Louis did say that there was a notice for drawing people to be part of that is expected to go out in the next couple of weeks.
So what do we have now? If you want to, I mean, isn't that what you talk to your city councilor and then they kind of...
Well, that's what's a little strange about it. There's kind of a way you do a city manager form of government. Again, I'm not claiming to know all the answers here, but basically the way it's, I think, supposed to work is that you've got these city councilors who are 9 people who are coming from diverse constituencies.
Representing the community.
Yeah, they represent everybody, but they tend to focus more on particular subsets.
1,800 votes.
So if you're a resident of the city, you talk to your city councilor, and then the councilor brings in orders and petitions the manager, and then you basically act through your councilors primarily, rather than directly to the manager. Now, on the other hand, if you think about it, the Public Works Department works under the manager, not under the council.
True.
And if you need your rubbish picked up or somebody missed something, you don't call a councilor.
No, you're going to go to the...
go directly to the
Okay.
city departments or
Right.
whatever. So in some things, it's completely appropriate to work directly through the city departments, or maybe even directly to the city manager. I think when we were pushing recycling, we didn't really go through the councilors that much. We went to the manager.
No, because we were
Right.
part of DPW.
Right. So
An advisory committee to DPW.
well, this is even before that. Even before that. Back when we were first
Okay.
getting the volunteer program together.
All right,
We
that's
worked
interesting.
directly with Public Works and through the city manager's office.
Well, then maybe,
Right.
then, okay.
But
all
that's not typical. I think
All
what you
right.
typically do is you work politically for anything that's sort of political in nature. You work through the city councilors rather than directly through the manager. But there are exceptions, right? So this is a little bit of a departure if you're working, if you have a
I
citizen.
kind of like
advisory-
it now that you're talking
Well,
about
I like
because,
it. I do
you
like
really
it.
do. There's almost like two branches of government in a way.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how it was
Yeah.
comprised, because you got your political people and you got
Yes.
your civic people.
Right.
Civic persons like me would rather deal directly with city officials rather than, city administration people,
Yes.
rather than through political people like city councilors.
Me too.
But there are a lot of people, I think more people than not, tend to deal with political people.
I know, but
So-
then you get the
I know.
hobnobbing and the lobbying.
I
and
know. But
And
for
also,
people
they
who are
don't
real
talk
serious.
together. I mean,
Listen, for people who are really serious about, municipal finance and water
But how
and
come?
whatever,
Right, but then how come?
better to deal directly with
Then
them.
how come the city council, when they
administration.
were coming up with all these like recycling ordinance, didn't go directly to the advisory committee rather than them finding out? See, that's a problem when you don't have.
I
When it's
think-
too political.
I think it's
then
called
you don't.
meddling,
Right.
but that's my opinion. I mean, when you're setting policies, ultimately the city council should be primarily a policy setting body. So they should set policies. Yes, they are the ones
But
who
they
have to
should
vote on
get the
ordinances.
advice from advisory committees.
If they are wise,
They're wise,
but they are
okay.
not always so wise, right?
I would say to everybody that wants to serve on a commission of any kind, also pay attention to what your city council is doing, because I think
Yeah.
you really need to know what's policy orders being, because it can affect the work that you want to do in this community.
I think that's really, really true.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now another thing.
right.
So maybe enough for the sanctuary. See, this
Yes.
will be a topic for this.
Oh.
There's 3 more regularly scheduled city council meetings. I'm
Right.
pretty sure
There'll be a
this
lot
is
of
going to
policy
be.
orders coming out of this.
It's sort of
maybe.
good. It's politically juicy to talk about too. So they will not be able to avoid it.
Okay.
It's just
All right.
too tasty.
All right.
But we had a meeting of our Central Square Advisory Committee. That's
You
one of the
did,
boards
not
that
me.
I serve on.
Right.
And we had a pretty loaded agenda. We were supposed to deal with a bit of a review of the Central Square Restoration Petition,
Right.
also known as the Seder Petition, named for Joseph and Nabil Seder, who were the first signers of it, which is basically takes some of the. We should really have somebody from the petitioners come in here and talk about it soon, but. Basically, it took some of the good ideas from the the other Central Square Advisory Committee.
C2, yeah.
It was part of the K2C2
Right.
process.
2013.
And honestly, they took the least controversial ones, like there were some proposals to give significant increases in height.
They really.
And they pretty much didn't touch the height. They do want to allow some additional density for residential development only.
Yep.
I believe there is a hope that in fact this might spur some activity, like putting a few floors back on some buildings above
Yes.
retail that might actually house people.
Yes.
And if so, I think that would be wonderful. There are a few other things like right now the zoning laws are that if you put in a business district like Central Square, but you want to put in housing, it would have to have a residential setback from the street,
Right.
which quite honestly doesn't make a whole lot of sense in a place like Central Square. In fact, it tends to be more of a nuisance to have it. So they want to have an exemption so that you don't have to have the
Right.
setback for that, which I think is a smart move for Central Square, not in general, but just for places like Central Square. They want to exempt, one of the really great ideas I thought from the Central Square, the C2 process, and I think the K2 process too, was this idea of having exempting ground floor retail from the calculations
Right.
for density.
Right.
So essentially, you could build that for free and then build on top of it. And that would be I think that would be a great thing. Of course, the devil's in the details.
Yes.
Because if you just say, great, you can, have this retail and it doesn't count into your calculations for density, you're essentially giving somebody development potential. I would like to know what the city would get back in return, specifically in terms of guarantees
Right.
of so-called retail diversity. In other words, so that, perhaps maybe even short of rent control, some kind of understanding
Yeah.
that in fact these buildings would not have such exorbitant rents that retailers couldn't afford them.
Right.
If you give them a break to have the retail as frontage, but then nobody can afford it, then you've accomplished nothing.
You had a map of this district. I'm trying to find it in your. Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Because I think that's. Wait, let me make sure it's centered. Okay.
Okay.
Well, all
So this is actually a map from the.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Have we gone away here? Here we go.
There it is.
All right, so this is basically a picture of the Central Square Overlay District, which is the district that the Central Square Advisory Committee advises on. We have no regulatory authority, but we offer an opinion, which then goes to matters that are going to go in front of the planning board. We will opine before they go to the planning board or to the Board of Zoning
So
Appeals.
the red outline I see is what?
The Central
That
Square
is the-
Overlay District.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't have it completely on here.
yeah.
Okay, so it goes.
Yeah, it's a little. I think it's a little inaccuracy that they tried to fix there because the
Okay.
new building that they built,
Where?
where they extended the Cambridge Port Redevelopment District,
This
the
right here?
University Park up to Mass Ave,
Oh,
down
down
to the
here.
right. Where in 300, I think it's 300 or 350 Mass Ave is built. That seems, that's in the district, but it should also, well, I guess it is actually in purple.
Oh, okay.
So that's also part of the CRDD in the map there.
So what's the CRDD mean?
The Cambridge Port revitalization, something or other. I forget what it was, but that was
Okay.
with the University Park from the old Simplex site.
Right.
And all of
Okay.
that, when that was all rezoned for that
Okay.
kind of development.
I see.
But anyway, that's the zone that's basically, so when people talk about Central Square for the purposes of
this.
zoning and planning, this
Right.
is really the delineation. So it actually, you might see it extends off a little bit along Prospect Street. It extends over to Bishop
Are
Allen
the
Drive.
pink buildings commercial buildings? Because I noticed on Franklin Street it's gray. Is that
I
because
think
it's
the
residential?
pink is actually open lots.
Really?
Yeah, the
Oh,
gray
because
is
it's
the
the Mass
buildings.
Ave. Oh, okay, I get
So you see a lot of the big parking lots that are in
Oh,
the
my
back there,
goodness.
which is definitely one place that's still
well, Mass
unresolved.
and Main is around here, right?
Mass and Main will be down there at Lafayette Square.
Yeah,
It's in
okay.
gray, but it's all little one-story buildings right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, that's
interesting. All right.
That's a little taste of what's
Yeah.
associated with it.
Okay.
Other provisions of the Central Square Restoration Petition. And by the way, it's called restoration because historically many of these buildings that are now one-story buildings used to have multiple floors above them.
That's right. You said
But
that.
because of the way the tax laws were written way back
would
in the
save them
30s
money
or
to
whatever,
make it lower.
they actually sawed the building, the upper floors
Isn't that
off the
funny?
building to save money on taxes.
People probably don't realize that.
So the restoration reference,
Interesting.
which is a little bit of a sales pitch, let's face it, right?
Because it makes it sound like we're going to restore it.
yeah, but the reference is really to the fact that
Yeah.
Central Square used to have buildings that actually had people living above the buildings, and they would like to
Interesting.
bring some of that back.
And
right.
now there is a meeting tonight that you're probably going to go to, right?
Yeah, so
Which is the-
so we were supposed to have a hearing on this and maybe offer our opinion last night, but there was some conflicts, so we didn't get to do it. So it's postponed for the Central Square Advisory Committee, but it goes before the planning board tonight.
It's 7.
I think it's at 7.
Yeah.
And it is
you have it right here.
anticipated that it'll be at least
To
one other
amend
meeting as
this
well.
petition is, okay.
Yeah, it's a substantial enough petition that I imagine it'll have a second hearing. So our opinion at the Central Square Advisory Committee will show up in time for the second hearing, I imagine.
Okay, so then what is the December 1st ordinance committee
Okay.
meeting?
Right, so the thing is that when a zoning petition comes in before the city council, the city council says, okay, and then they refer it to the planning board and the city
the same
council's
time.
ordinance committee for hearing and report. So it's a twin process, so it now goes in front of the planning board.
They get a separate report from both.
Yeah,
one doesn't inform the other?
They do. The zoning, a zoning petition, basically the planning board doesn't rule on that. They offer an opinion. They might say, well, we think we give a positive recommendation, a negative recommendation, or we propose that maybe you should amend it in the following ways.
Because they supposedly know the issues there because they know zoning.
And they do. They really do.
Well,
now the city council should then take that under advisement
when they do their ordinance.
And when they're working through the ordinance committee, and they should listen to the planning board because the planning board knows what they're talking about.
So they will know what the planning board has. Well, they actually issued their memo already.
Right. So
this is just discussion then tonight.
Right. So what happened is that the CDD, Community Development Department, Jeff Roberts wrote up the notes on it, and then those will inform the planning board. So they'll have a nice, rich discussion. The planning board will know what it is they have to vote on. Ultimately, they'll probably won't do it right away. They'll do it at another meeting.
Again, go to Roberts' Cambridge Civic Journal. He's got all of these linked. No, but you have every one of these, the memo, you have the petition. Actually, the response by the Cambridge Residents Alliance.
We actually have a page just for this specific program, and all the links are in there as well.
Is it not on the regular? Right.
Some of them are.
Just go to Cambridge InsideOut.
You'll find it out. You'll find it pretty easily. So anyway, that'll go before the planning board, but then on the ordinance committee,
which is
and they haven't posted any agenda at all. So all we know is they're going to talk about it.
No agenda,
no agenda posted at all yet. So that'll be this Thursday at 3. I'm planning to go to that one as well.
Okay.
It is interesting. Actually, maybe if you could kind of click on this because
which one were you going to go to?
Well, we'll just sort of go over here just to this whole flood of stuff in here.
Yeah.
So one of the things, in addition to, let me just say, one of the advocacy groups called the Cambridge Residents Alliance is, for the most part, chimed in with relatively positive statements about this.
That was very encouraging.
Right? But in addition, and nobody has taken any, has claimed on this, why don't you just click on the inflammatory flyer?
This is pretty bad.
So scattered around Area 4, I guess we're supposed to say the port now, there was this thing saying, stop the developers from completely changing the character of Central Square, which is nonsense.
Right.
This is the most nonsensical.
They just took little things and didn't. It's
filled with force. Markedly changed the density or raising the height of buildings. That's absolutely false.
And also, it's not a city council meeting on the 1st. He says they're going to decide it at the city. That's not true.
No, it's not a city council meeting on this December 1st at all.
It's a committee meeting.
December 1st is a ordinance committee, and nothing will be decided.
Exactly. So it's such misinformation.
Yeah, but this was scattered all around the port, and people asked it.
I didn't get it, but you said it was.
Well, some people were saying, "Well, you're in Cambridge Port, not the port." See, this is one of the reasons why I don't like the new name.
Because it doesn't go down to where it wasn't affecting me. It only affects people continue.
It's what we would have called Area 4 in the past. Did that just sort of vanish on its own there?
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, the loonies are out a little bit too. Let me just be clear about that.
Loony season, anyway.
So most of the people who petitioned are pretty supportive of it. I think the Residents Alliance people are mainly supportive of it. They have a very thoughtful response with some suggestions that they offered.
Very encouraged.
And that'll be at the planning board tonight as well.
Yeah.
And at the ordinance committee. The ABC group, Better Cambridge, which tends to promote transit-oriented development, they're very supportive as well. So this is something that has a fair amount of support.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of good refinements are made, but it's generally a sort of a good thing.
Okay.
I'm going to say one other thing here. I hope I'm not going to take anybody off of this, but another thing that we were supposed to, the only thing we actually acted on at the Central Square Advisory Committee was a plan to put in a new bus shelter on Prospect Street at Bishop Allen Drive. Totally non-controversial. Yeah, it's where there's 3 bus lines actually go through there.
Okay, I get you, Right.
And there were a couple that we were supposed to do the Central Square Restoration Petition. We were supposed to do a revision to the hotel in the building where Toscanini's is located. Yes. There's a proposal to transform the building and build it out a little bit, make it into kind of a nice boutique-y kind of hotel.
That's Patrick
Barrett's project. It's actually a pretty good project. But the third one the fourth item was supposed to be, when they do the Mass and Main project, one part of that is that the city is going to be putting these huge underground stormwater retention basins under the parking lots.
Yeah.
And, or at least a portion of the parking lots, because there's also the possibility that housing may be built on a portion back there as well.
Yeah.
And this is to help relieve some of the flooding conditions that have plagued the port for decades, if not forever, really forever. But then you need to convey that stormwater when you pump it out somewhere, and you got to get it past the Red Line tunnel to get to the pipe that sends it down to the river.
Wait, is it allowed to go to the river?
Yeah, because it's stormwater retention, so that will just go. That's not. It's presumably the septics have been removed from that. It ain't exactly something you want to go bathing.
So Red Line is an obstacle.
Well, right. So the thing is, there was a plan to sort of come, sort of snake it over the Red Line. The amount of clearance is so little that it's starting to look like the only way to do it would be to cut into the tunnel roof itself. To the Red Line.
Goodness.
And there's just, the MBK is saying, no way, Jose.
So what does that mean then?
Well, there's different ideas that are being floated right now, including, get this, one idea of actually having the pipes to evacuate the stormwater go up side of a building and go over Mass Ave on an arch, come down the other way.
Could they make it decorative?
No. And then get it over the tunnel, come up and over the tunnel that way, and then you would turn it into a big art project and whatever.
Well, I guess it's a possibility.
I know, I don't know. I
bet it's cheaper.
I know.
Except how do you get water up?
You pump it. You got to pump it up anyway. And once you get it up, it's a bit of a siphon effect. So it's actually
interesting.
It's not as hard as you might think.
All right.
Once the initial push is
how
up,
big
but
a pipe would it be?
Pretty big.
Oh.
And it might be multiple pipes to sort of do it in a reasonable way.
So it could look like part of the architecture.
Right, but they would have to come up and over Mass Ave.
So wait a minute.
Through this,
I missed this part.
The stormwater Arc de Triomphe as you enter Central Square.
Why up over? Why up and over
Welcome to
Mass
Central
Ave?
Square, because you got to get up over the Red Line.
And then go down again?
Yeah, it would actually come across like right next to us, right here in front of the Central Square Cinema.
Oh my goodness! But it could be decorative. It could be interesting.
Anyway, I don't think this is really going to happen, but I thought it was an interesting thing to have
that is interesting.
Under discussion.
Okay.
All right. So, anyway, interesting thing happened. You learn a lot of interesting things when you serve on city boards and commissions. So once again, another pitch for you to want to serve on boards and commissions. There's one thing I had wanted to mention last week, but I completely forgotten to touch on it. But was we had a meeting of this Envision Cambridge Advisory Committee previous Wednesday. I think it was November 16th.
So we didn't talk about it last week.
I don't think we talked about it, right? But the one thing I wanted to mention about it, because this is sort of the overarching Envision Cambridge Advisory Committee. There's the consultants who are working for the city, UTIL company. There's the staff of the CDD.
Right.
There are various work groups that are focusing on much more specific things, and this is supposed to be the advisory group that a lot of things get funneled through.
The umbrella. You're a part of that.
Yeah, and I'm on that too, right? So, I mean, honestly, these are the two biggies for me these days: is Central Square and Envision Cambridge, right? Anyway, it's interesting because I went to that meeting thinking to myself, well, we've only met a couple of times, and it's a little bit more like we have nice, pleasant chats about this, and we all float a lot of ideas, and then we weren't really getting the impression it was necessarily going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I went there and I had some notes. I didn't want to be obnoxious or anything, but I'd written some notes to myself saying, I should really mention this. Like, well, what are we really going to be doing now, right?
Yeah.
And before I even got a chance to say it, one member of the public actually said, well, what's the purpose of this committee supposed to be? I was kind of hoping that they would actually be getting more into the thick of it, rather than just sort of being a review committee for some of the things that came out of the staff. And I was thinking, well, thank you. I don't have to say it. Now somebody else from the public has said it. And then another member of the committee said, I was really doing this. It said, I didn't sign on to this job here in order to rubber stamp. Yeah. We want to really work here.
Wow.
I'm thinking, great.
And who were they saying this to?
To the staff.
Okay, who was it? Okay.
I think most of this first year has really been all about kind of fact collecting and get a lot of public input, and I think that's been wonderful. Yeah. And at some point, I think basically what I'm trying to say here is the people on the advisory committee
really want to work.
They're itching to get into it now, and there's a lot of stuff. The staff and the UTIL people have done a great job in gathering good information about demographics and current conditions and whatever. So we really want to get to work.
But what does that mean? How would you get to work?
Well, I think we'll probably meet more frequently.
They're the ones getting paid to do this.
Well,
right?
So they'll come back with all the experts. So like a lot of city boards work this way, where the staff people come back with a lot of the facts, and then basically present it, and then you sort of...
Right, but there's staff people, but then there's consultants.
Right.
City departments don't have consultants usually.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just thinking about
But I think staff and the UTL have been working very collaboratively.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's sort of like it's their own thing.
Right. And honestly, I don't think anybody on this Envision Cambridge Advisory Committee think they're supposed to be making decisions, ultimately. Right. But they want to be making substantial recommendations, and they want to be a part of it.
Well, then you have to meet more often then.
We are going to be meeting more often, and I think we're going to be a lot more substantial in what we're going to be doing when we do that. So... and I was thrilled to at least get that amount of feedback.
So the staff was receptive to that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think they were really receptive to it. I think they kind of I don't think they were too eager to get moving too fast until they kind of got enough input from enough people.
Yeah.
But, I think anybody who's been involved in political and civic affairs in Cambridge it tends to be the usual people coming out giving the usual statements. So they made a tremendous effort to try and reach out to get people who are not the traditional people.
But they did get some feedback from the council, and they had the roundtable on this, right?
Yeah, they had a roundtable on that.
And they were kind of given hey, you haven't done enough here, you haven't reached out enough here.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they heard a little bit of that from the city council, but it was also reflected when the Envision Cambridge group met a couple days later, and that was pretty great. So anyway, we're winding down here, so I think it's worth mentioning just a few quick little things coming up. So this Thursday is the ordinance committee at 3 o'clock on Central Square Restoration
at
City Hall.
Tonight, though, it's at the
Volpe Working Group meeting as at Cambridge Innovation Center this Thursday at 5:30.
Okay.
Bring your ID, otherwise you can't get in. There's a few more city council meetings coming up, and as we mentioned last week, on Wednesday, December 7th, so I'm sure we'll talk about it next week, at 5 o'clock, there's the Economic Development Relations. Did they change it?
That's what I told you. It's on the 6th now at 5:30 when we have our show.
Well, it's still on the
the
open
14th.
meeting for.
Okay.
Anyway,
we'll
see you
check
next
it out.
week.
Bye.